to know your insights and viewpoints on the theme of the conference, Analytics Everywhere, Unleash the Power of Data.
Okay, thanks guys for the warm welcome and the felicitation, and it's super cool to be sitting alongside a diverse set of fellow industry people, and it's going to be fun. What we're going to do is maybe exchange ideas, perspectives, thoughts around this topic, because this is a extremely vast area, right? I mean, we all live in a data age. I keep saying this every time I speak about data, that there was industrial age, stone age, machine age, and this is the data age, right? And of course, you can't make statements without supporting them with data. So I'll support this statement with data, right? Eric Schmidt, who is the CEO of Google, in 2004, he said that the amount of data that was generated from the beginning of time up to 2004 is the amount of data that we're now generating every 48 hours. That tells you the gravity of data that we sort of create and consume at the same time. So I think today every organization is a data organization, every business is a data business, every service is a data-driven service. Now there is so much data, so much computing power, so much ability to leverage data to solve problems across the world, that sometimes we even end up crossing the line, right? You hear about wrong use of data and stuff like that, because you got to remember the powerful Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So we have this data power that we all have in various shapes and forms. How do we use it responsibly? How do we also choose the right problems to solve, right? Sometimes we may, because we have data, we're tempted to just use it. And sometimes we may spend time, energy, money in solving the wrong problems. To give you an example, Facebook just wrote off their entire investment in Metaverse 1 week back. They rebranded the company as Meta because of their focus on building the Metaverse. $20 billion or $200 billion of investment, some insane number of zeros involved there, right? They wrote off that investment and they sort of chose to move on. So, of course, making mistakes is a part of the evolution journey. That's how we've evolved as a species. That's how businesses evolve. That's how industries evolve. So that's part of the game. But every mistake has a cost, right? And how do you mitigate the risks of making mistakes early, making the right mistakes as well, and not repeating those mistakes? I think those are areas that data really gives us a lot of clarity and a lot of experience to sort of apply in our areas of work respectively. So what I'm going to do is, as a starting note, I'm going to give each one of my fellow panelists like 2 or 3 minutes to talk about how they see data from their interesting perspectives in their areas of work and in their view of the world in these data-driven ecosystems that we all live in, right? So let's have an open-ended 2-minute, 3-minute conversation from each one of you in terms of how you view the data-driven world in your area of work and in your perspective, and then I'll pick up from what all I find in those conversations, and then we can build on from there. Yeah, starting off with maybe Smita first in that chronological order. Sorry, I have the aisle seat, so because I then see you all and we can have a more interesting conversation. I think that mic probably is not working. You might want to use this.
Qualitative research background, though Lumiere is a qualitative, quantitative consulting firm. My experience is more in the qualitative space. Little correction there, 21 years of experience, not 11. Having said that, what you said, Dhaval, I completely agree, and one word or one phrase which I want to pick up from what Dhaval said, is having the correct problem statement. Identifying the correct problem statement. So that's the first step to then look at the data, rather than looking at the data and then solving for something which probably exists, does not exist, is it relevant at that point in time. So therefore, what we believe is co-creating the brief with the client. What are we solving for? Is there a need at this point in time to solve for? A lot of times clients approaches, they are in a hurry to succeed, right? To get that success. But is this the right time to do that? Is there a need to wait? Maybe wait for, you have to just launch something. You want to give it some time, or you want to just jump into it saying, okay, this is the data, this is XYZ, and I want to rush into something. So therefore, arriving at the problem statement is the starting point, and taking a pause there, I think it's extremely important, and that's what I would put it on board and hand it over to Utkarsh.
Yeah, before Utkarsh, you take it from there. Just one interesting thing I want to call out for the audience. I think, Smita, you bring in a very qualitative perspective to this, and sometimes that's important, right? Because we get too carried away with data at times, with models and statistics, and because it gives you a sense of power, a sense of control, a sense of predictability, and it just feels like more comfortable territory. But remember, data is basically the programming language of machines. For humans, it's qualitative emotions, stories, right? So I think it's important to every once in a while switch on this qualitative lens and see things from a creative or a right brain perspective. To translate data into stories or data into emotion, also not miss the sight of the big picture and not get too obsessed with what we're dealing with. So that's an interesting takeaway, and that whole qualitative lens I think always helps Utkarsh to take it over from here.
Thank you, Smita. Very well said. Thank you, Dhaval. Hope I'm loud and audible enough.
Yes.
I think I'll take the quote that Dhaval said. With lot of data comes a lot of confusion as well. Okay, so I have the journey from being data which was scarcity issue of the 4 V's, the 3 V's, the 3 problem in terms of, and the veracity part of it. Today we are like kids in a candy store and say, "Mujhe ye bhi chahiye, mujhe wo bhi chahiye." It is exactly what just you mentioned. People are in a hurry. So that transition of what can data analytics do, and say, "Can you do this for me, quick kill?" Okay, so we have come that journey in the last 20 years, and I'm sure most of the businesses will agree. And I'm in a positive position where in ABG we have 19 group companies, starting from an Hindalco, which has been a commodity giant, to a retail, to a financial services. I'll just summarize my story in a few minutes. In 2015 when I joined it, one of the most top CEOs, he told me, data se kya kar loge? And 2023, he is the same person who is attending the Fulcrum, which is the international conference for ABG, and he says data has helped us outcome our profitability really, really well. So, amazing story of success, what data has been acknowledged today. But I think, yes, we have to, I think one critical piece from now on will be, how do you take the transformation of data to insights, to the business, to the value that we derive. And I think that's what, even somewhere when you're pointing at the emotion part of it, the human part of it, can we actually convert that insight into a customer need, a business value need, adding that human flavor to it? It would be a very, very critical piece. I think we have covered the majority of the technical, the data, the structured journey. Today now what we need is getting into insights, getting into human behavior and human expectations. So I think that's the summary of a journey we have done really well. Probably data is still going to be the part of tomorrow, but it still needs now that business perspective much more than what it needed a few years back.
Before we move to Sri, just one more reflection on what you said, Utkarsh, which is sometimes data creates a lot of confusion, right? Just because there is a lot of data, you want to do things which were not even required, and there is an opportunity cost to everything that you choose to do, right? So that's important to keep in mind. And we also, because we are a part of the data generation, we always like to generalize things, right? Okay. We always like to generalize things. We come up with these. You guys can hear me anyway, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in
Yeah.
Okay, better. So, we sometimes like to generalize things. We come up with these interesting catchphrases like data is the new oil and, all of that, which is great, by the way. It helps you create a lot of content, sets the narrative right, helps storytelling, all of that, which is great. But we should resist generalizing things. Data is important and so is oil, right? Because if you see last year's Saudi Aramco, you know what is Saudi Aramco? It's Saudi Arabia's biggest oil company, in fact the biggest oil company on the planet. Their revenues are close to $2.6 trillion, okay? 70% of Saudi's economy. Saudi Aramco's profits in 2022 were more than the profits of Apple, Google and Microsoft combined. Okay, so oil is the new oil. Data is of course great and data is doing some fantastic things and we're doing great things with data, nothing to take away from that. But resist generalizing things. Oil has its place in the mix, data has its place in the mix. You've got to see how you leverage everything in the right way rather than getting overwhelmed or confused with whatever it is that's out there, right? With that, over to you, Sri.
Maybe I'll grab some attention by countering what he said. Data helps you save oil. How many of you would disagree with this statement? All of us use Google Maps to find out the route that is not really crowded, the way that is peak. Yes or no? We plan things. A few years ago, would have taken our bike or car, gone onto the road, stopped somewhere, asked somebody how to go here, how to go there, right? Today we can plan. When do we start? When do we leave? We have an expectation, right? So I come from the world where when you say big data, typically the thing that comes to our mind are Google, Facebook, Amazon, the big guys. But we are at least we at Tiger or other companies like us, right? We work with a lot of other firms or other corporate companies in the world where we are using analytics to improve their process efficiency. The process efficiency may not be what you really see. But one simple example is like, let us say there is a company that uses contract trucks for shipping their goods. They move their goods from factory to a warehouse or warehouse to the retailer. Data helps them, the data and the associated models help them predict the costs properly so that they can budget. I know that it will only cost me so much, but during COVID, there was actually a mad rush in America where truck prices went up like crazy and all the companies, their budgets changed. Okay, so we would do work with people, that is one example. But we do work with different companies where we improve their process efficiency. It can be logistics, shipping, reaching out to customers. One typical stereotype that all of us see when we say data, you think that Facebook or somebody is trying to get into your brain, read your brain. That is one part of the story, the other extreme application of data. But there is a significant part of the world where data is still improving the process efficiency, with which things are improving, or we are trying to, you call it green, you call it less oil, you call it more efficient, whatever you call it, right? Data is still there, but that is not the so fancy set of things where you don't really see on the news every day.
No, absolutely, Sri, and I am completely with you when you say data drives everything, because of course all of us are here big fans of data, analytics, predictability, models, all the quantitative stuff that's out there. So nothing to take away from that. And talking about logistics, by the way, because I happen to be with Loginex, which is like the world's largest logistics automation platform. The amount of data we create, right, with all the location data points that come in, the routing and the tracking of different items across the world. Like as we speak right now, since the time I started talking, which was about 5 minutes, 10 minutes back, on our platform alone, we would have done at least close to 3,000 deliveries of all kinds of items, including furniture, burgers, pizzas, documents like your graduation certificates, sandwiches, apparel, you name it, right from Guatemala and Latin America to New York to Europe to Middle East to Jeddah to Singapore to Australia, 50 plus countries, right? Now why am I saying this? Because we deal with this volume of data, like day in and day out, and that allows us to build a proposition in terms of what our platform does, right? In terms of saving oil, right? Reducing carbon footprint is one of the biggest objectives of most organizations. And it's no longer a fancy social cause that people need to have in their marketing budget so that it makes their quarterly results look good or makes the stock market see them in the right way. But it's becoming a need of the hour, right? We all understand that climate change is real and it's causing tectonic shifts in the way our lives are being shaped from an environmental perspective. And that's why all companies are becoming more and more serious about reducing their carbon footprint. And data really helps you there in terms of moving to renewable sources of energy, in terms of reducing the consumption of oil and all of that. So of course, data remains the hero of the story. But all we're saying is we shouldn't really unglamorize all the other actors in the game like oil and other people and other things that are being a part of the ecosystem, because they all have a role to play, right? Sometimes a Johnny Lever is equally important as a Shah Rukh Khan, because it all adds up eventually. It's just not one person or one situation that drives the story. Of course, I'm not saying oil is Johnny Lever and data is Shah Rukh Khan. That's just a coincidence which is absolutely unintended. But having said that, let's move over to Prasad and your take on this.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, thank you for inviting me to this conference. Before I begin, I would like to quote that the views that I'm expressing here are my own and they do not represent my employer.
Yeah, I think that applies to all of us, by the way. Anybody who's seeing this video, just to set the narrative right. Yeah. And the rights of all of what we're talking about remain with us or Tejas Somaiya Institute of Management, and not with Mark Zuckerberg or Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella. If you guys are watching, just to let you know. Go ahead, Prasad. Sorry.
Yeah. So, talking about what's happening in the data world, as you asked, Dhaval, my perspective on it, I would like to start by agreeing to what you said. The amount of data that is growing today is tremendous. But when I think from a technology perspective to this, or let's say from any industry's perspective today, what I see is firms do not have the capability to process this data on their own anymore, because the volume is so huge that they cannot afford to have it on-prem. So the new thing that's trending today is cloud. So whether it is Azure, GCP or AWS, irrespective of the industry, firms are moving towards cloud because they want to leverage the benefits of cloud to process that volume of data, eventually to draw insights from it, and then gain competitive edge. So irrespective of what happens, which industry you're talking about, I'm not talking about the future, I'm talking right now. Irrespective of the industry, every firm today is a technology firm. So that is because data has grown and people are using data for data-driven decision making. So that is one observation that I have. Then the next observation, I think there was a statement which said that problems are required to be framed in the right way, and then those problems should be solved via data. So what I have observed in my own experience is that firms are framing the problem correctly. They are having an analytics engine, to somehow draw insights and resolve those problems. The challenges where they are facing is in the data itself. So let me quote an analogy here. If you buy a Mercedes and use kerosene as a fuel, it won't work, right? So same is the case here as well. People are struggling with data quality, and data governance is one part where majority of the firms are lacking today. So as an analytics professional, I think the next big area where analytics professionals could bring in AI, ML and really make a difference is in the domain of data governance and data quality. For instance, if I have a metric, any customer related metric, okay, I look at it and I make decisions, and then I fail to find out that the metric itself was not right because the data was not right. So how can I make my metrics more reliable is the problem statement that I see today, which is trending. So that's my perspective on it.
Interesting, Prasad. And since you spoke about Mercedes, let me talk about Tesla. Because Tesla's stock valuation is, people say Tesla stock is overvalued. It's trading at 10 times, 100 times. You guys understand PE ratios, stock valuation, stuff like that? Yes? Being MBA students, you should know these things. You can't say, oh, my specialization is marketing. My specialization is operations. I don't know about PE ratios. You're supposed to know all of this, right? So Tesla is, people say it's overvalued. You know why it's overvalued? Because Tesla is not an automotive company. It's a data company. Every time a Tesla car runs on the road, it collects billions of data points. It's got sensors all around it, and it improves the visibility of human-made structures. It improves visibility of the road, it improves visibility of routes, it improves visibility of different road signs, etc. And as a result of which, all this data goes back into machine learning algorithms that make the Tesla car smarter. Okay, and that's where they can do self-driven autonomous vehicles, right? Where the car drives itself, because it's got so much data that it's able to predict a lot of stuff with a lot of accuracy. So today, even automobiles are moving into a zone where they're becoming data-driven, right? So Tesla's valuation is not as a car company or a car manufacturer. Their valuation is because they're a data company, and car is just a construct that allows them to leverage data in the right way. So that's just a quick add-on to that before we move on to Sharad.
Hello, am I audible? Good afternoon, you all. So everyone is talking about data, and I too will be talking about data only. But I do agree with Dhaval, because I do agree that the data is going to be the new fuel, and it is already a new fuel now. Now, if you talk about the availability of the data today, you won't believe that, and there is a research in the Great Britain, that only 30% of the data is being analyzed so far. Only 30%. So 70% data is still unanalyzed. Yes. Now the thing is, data don't drive business, decisions do. So availability of data is absolutely fine. We are blessed about that, no doubt about it. But the thing is, how we are going to change that, or we are going to convert that data to make the right decisions, and that's what the whole this analytics field is all about. I'll go further beyond by quoting. I don't know how many of you have noticed last week's Times of India or Economic Times, and here's a caution, Mumbaikars, to you. What is that? Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai, MCGM, right? Yeah. So MCGM has started using fraud analytics. All right, and we are proudly associated with that. So they are using SAS. So no more, they are going to come very smartly in order to assessing the square footage, all the loopholes, everything, right? So at that level, we usually say that data or data analytics or business analytics is something fancy to the industry only. It is big way coming into the public domain now, or the public services now. Government are one of the most important and huge customers nowadays. They are using it in and out everywhere. For example, for security, right? For security and safety and things like that, the camera feed coming in and things like that. So they are going to be, and they have already started analyzing it real time. I remember long back, when this 9/11 happened, at SAS, after that incident happened, we did a kind of a pilot with the government of US, and we were able to create a model which predicted that particular event, that these kind of events can be predicted, and governments have already started using it in that way. This is one take. Another take is, when you talk about analytics, it's not only about business analytics. I'll go beyond that. There's a movement called as data for good, and SAS is proudly associated with that data for good movement. You won't believe that the analytics is getting utilized in conserving the wild animals now. The Puno National Park, you might have, in the news from last so many, months in India, because the cheetahs are being taken from Namibia and things like that. And in the Namibia sanctuary, these things are getting implemented in order to conserve these wildlife. So it's not only about business; it's just go beyond those boundaries as well. That's what my initial thoughts are.
Yeah, and I think data for good is a really interesting paradigm. Even talking about wildlife conservation, right? Most of these sanctuaries nowadays have data-driven collars that they put on those animals, like lions and tigers and all. They have these data-driven collars on their paws or around their necks, etc. And that actually works like a fitness tracker. It sends across a lot of vital statistics about that animal's well-being. Is the animal eating well? Is the animal sleeping well? Is the animal, do they have any biological challenges, etc.? And all that data is being analyzed by the forest conservation team. So there are analytics professionals working with these teams that help, take corrective action based on which tiger needs vaccination or which tiger needs to be fed more or stuff like that, which is, again, amazing, right, in terms of using data for social good. So lots of these use cases are, I think, coming up, and that's actually a good thing to see. Moving on, just to pick on one thing that you said, Sri, on the technology part, also tying it back to Prasad's point on infrastructure, right? Data infrastructures. Like today, to process the 3 V's, as Utkarsh was also talking about, the volume, veracity, and velocity of data. So tons and tons of data coming in. The infrastructure you need to run that data, it's running on the cloud, GCP, AWS, or Azure, or any of that, right? And you have very complex and resource intensive workloads that are being processed, and you've got workload processing capabilities in the cloud as well with TensorFlow and all these ML processing services. So what's your take on this whole infra story? Like how democratic that infra is beginning to become, and also how democratic the code is beginning to become, right? Today you want to build any model, you can get online and you can find all the code you need. Random forest, logistic regression, you name it, right? You get on GitHub, get anywhere. Code is no longer a great source of competitive advantage. It's all out there. So how do you think that whole infra and the tech space is evolving from becoming more open and more democratic for analytics? Yeah, Sri, you could take it.
Yeah. So on the cloud part, we have seen or we have worked with various clouds since almost 6 to 7 years. The technology is becoming mature. One thing, maybe I'll give a simple analogy, which is earlier, long ago, when we did not have any Ola, Uber, or any rented cars on call, if you had to go to a station with a lot of suitcases and all, you need to go walk around, find an auto or something. Today, you can rent a car and then go comfortably, right? So cloud is doing the similar thing to all the companies, where somebody who do not want to, or who does not really have the ability to have on-premise, either because of their technical challenges or because of the data volume. Data volume is a driving factor. I have a lot of data, I cannot have an on-premise device. Cloud is making it very easy. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, all of them are making it very easy for companies to become digital natives, meaning I don't really need to worry about maintaining my server, maintaining the systems. All of those are on the cloud. Cloud provides the reliability. And then from there I can do whatever I want. But the question about what to do about algorithms or machine learning, that is a crucial thing. The code is available everywhere. But how do you make proper decisions on what to look for, what to discard, what to keep, what kind of modeling construct? This is something that would come with practice, is what I would say. At least that is what I have observed. You go pull off a code and then you take your data, put some online code to it. No? Fair chances you may go wrong, and then you will realize it only later.
Yeah, just to take it to Smita on that note. Smita, on the qualitative side of it, right? How much importance should we give to the variables that you're choosing in the first place to solve a problem, right? Because all the engineering and technology exists, as Sri and all of us in fact mentioned, right? You have data pipelines, you've got a lot of stuff that's there. So technology is no longer really the problem. Of course, you need to know it and do the right things on that front. But from a qualitative standpoint, from figuring out what are the important variables, like when you guys do your qualitative studies or market research studies, right? You guys look at a bunch of parameters to arrive at some insight or to form your hypothesis, right? So just tell us a little bit more about selection of variables, selection of hypothesis, and the whole qualitative side of it.
Absolutely. And I think all of them have spoken so much about data. 2 or 3 points before I come to this specific question. Data for good, I love that, and that's what data can be used for, to bring in good to this Mother Earth, definitely. 2 more points which I heard. Data is confusing, and the authenticity of data. So there's so much of data that is available today. Is the data available? Yes. Is the data accessible? Yes. Is the data authentic? Probably a question mark. Yes, it is authentic, but yes, there's a question mark, and I'm sure all of us do agree to it to a certain extent. And having said that, above all this, we are also saying that only 30% of the data has been analyzed. as of today. To give you an example, and now coming to Dhaval's question, just an example of a case study where a major newspaper client, when they came to us, they said that we are the leaders in XYZ states. These are the circulation numbers, these are the readership numbers. And there's a close competition. So the data is there, the numbers are there, but the diagnostic in terms of what is working and what can we do to retain leadership or what can we do to move ahead. That's where the whole piece around qualitative comes in. And the research can happen in multiple cities and so on and so forth. So then, what are the variables that one needs to look at? So today, understanding or analyzing the situation as is the first point. Doing some pre-work, doing some secondary research. When you're meeting consumers, I personally get a high after 21 years also when I go out on the field and talk to consumers. Because consumers are moving way, way fast than that we think. There's so much of exposure today to the consumers that the amount of awareness that they have, it really opens your eyes and it really makes you feel, oh wow, there's so much of learning or unlearning that happens when you're out there on the field. So yes, whom do I meet? So when for example with this client, okay, the client feels that my target consumer is A, so and so, the demographics typically. Then there's a hypothesis also. But yes, they also want to cater to women, for example. So is the women readership there? The client feels that the women readership is not there for newspaper, print medium. Yeah? You go out there, talk to consumers. So we recommend that, okay, let's talk to the family. Why do you talk only to the man of the house? Imagine all of our households, morning newspaper, kitne baje aata hai? 6:30, 7. Who is the first person that holds a newspaper in the hand? Typically. Yeah? We all know the answer. When does the woman read the newspaper? Okay. How much time does the man read the newspaper in the morning? How much time does the woman spend with the newspaper in the afternoon? Yeah? Maybe she reads end to end. Maybe she reads something that interests her. Maybe she wants to do something, gather some knowledge and try and do something. And today, along with the newspaper, internet is a big ally for her. So what can we do for that woman who is interested in doing something? Can we do some off-ground, on-ground activities for her? So the diagnostic or the descriptive and the diagnostic analysis as it is called in qualitative, that is what really helps build the hypothesis further and then validate it with the quant. And that's where again those numbers will tell a story back with the qualitative findings.
Absolutely. And Smita, to your point, right, the biases are so deep in our minds, right? When you talk about qualitative correlations, as is a beautiful saying, like Harvard Business Review, 1984, some edition, December or something, where they say correlation is not causation. That's a big thing. Two things being correlated don't necessarily mean one thing is causing the other, right? Sometimes we make those judgments and biases in our heads. To Smita's point, right, about this whole gender bias, as an objective point of conversation, not with any level of subjectivity. When you utter words like, nurse, when you say nurse, you'll assume it's a female. When you say professor, you'll assume it's a male. When you say cricketer, you'll assume it's a actor, it's a male. Now these are subconscious biases. There is no genderism or anything that people are putting to it, but it's just a subconscious bias, right? Because sample is not the population, We see 2 data points, 3 data points, 4 data points, and we establish a relationship between those variables. And then we use that as a basis of our bias, even without us knowing about it. And that becomes a part of how we interact with the world. And as analytics people, I think we should dig deeper into any bias that we have by trying to ask questions that challenge assumptions around that bias. That can help you open your mind up. That can help you open your thinking up. And when you open your thinking up, you'll be able to see a lot more than what is out there. When you see a lot more than what is out there, your decision-making ability is far more profound. And then, of course, anything that you do, whatever be your area of work, you'll be able to make a much bigger impact, right? With that, I want to go to Sharad and Utkarsh on an interesting topic. Both Utkarsh, maybe from a large organization perspective that you would have a view of. How important is storytelling using data, right? Because we make these internal presentations, review presentations, how was the performance of the quarter, our market share is 25%, this business is growing, that business is degrowing. There's a lot of stuff happening, and a lot of that is actually, even though we think it's data, it's actually emotional storytelling. It's like a kid coming home and saying, hey, I came last in the race, and he's crying. Whereas the other kid comes in and says, hey, I came third. How many people were running? 3. It's a matter of perspective, right? And you can feel good about the fact that, oh, I came third here. That's great. You tell that to somebody, then you're good, yeah, good. Some people may not even ask you a follow-up question. How many people were running? They're not asking that. That happens in business. That happens in business more than you can imagine. In boardrooms more than you can imagine. We are the highest consumer. Our service XYZ has the highest market share in Africa. What's the market share? 0.5%. Highest, why? Because it's a fragmented market. So for a brand, it's highest, even though it's 0.5%. So, some of this is very cognitive, some of this is very, very, very subconscious. You don't even realize what you're doing there. And people raise investments, people get valuations, people create massive stock market movements by creating stories like this. Elon Musk just tweeted saying, Tesla now accepts Bitcoin. Bitcoin went through the roof. Next day, Elon Musk tweeted, Tesla now does not accept Bitcoin. Bitcoin crashed. Some people got rich in the process, some people lost money. Smaller narratives, and today social media gives you a channel to amplify those narratives. So it's not just within your organization, you are even engaging the whole world with your narratives. And it's again tying back to, with great power comes great responsibility. How should you act responsibly? And I think I'll turn it over to Utkarsh and then to Sharad as well. From your big organization perspective, how important is storytelling using data for internal as well as external stakeholders?
I think one thing which really amused me in what you said was, I think it's a quote generally I used to take offense earlier at saying, torture the data as much as I will give you the result that you want, okay? So we're talking the same story, right? But no, I am honest and I'm slightly sincere on this or serious on this. I think we have evolved, okay? Yes, to put up a nice story and to get that information or get that investment or get that brownie points from my senior leadership and say, oh yeah, we're doing very well. But with the gist of being a leader for 20 years, and we see through that. Okay, when we sit across, when business leaders are presenting and when the chairman says or the senior leaders calls her up and says, because please attend this, our yearly this or the critical meeting, and when they say, yeah, as you said, when came third, nobody mentions 3 out of 3. Nobody would mention that. No, but I think as an organization, so what we clearly did was we did not put up a ranking or a rating. It's just a relative performance. So next time when I say you came third out of 3, that's okay. If you still come third out of 5, that's an improvement. Okay, and that's we have matured. After the initial, as a kid saying, oh, I want to put up my best numbers forward. Now I have realized, I don't ask my kid as a 12-year-old, what is your score? Okay, or what is your best friend's score? I just ask her, how do you think this went? Can you done it better? And in a parlance for the corporate world, it's how relatively have you performed. Even in sustainability terms, what you're talking about. If we are the leader, and then we should be having the highest sustainability scores. Even if we are not, we should aim to have an example. So as a more responsible leader, you are right. One thing is storytelling, making the facts suitable to your context, but much more important is taking the right KPIs. And I'm sure when you sit with somebody like a Mr. Birla or somebody as senior, I'm sure he's seen much more than what we have seen through. So he'll rise through your will. But as a leader, yes, we understand data you have to be responsible at what you put up your data. And one statement I'm going to make very, very strongly today is 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, I don't see technology as a differentiator, honestly. It will be your ability. I tell my young colleagues who are learning hard, I think I spoke to a couple of people as well, saying, today you're learning coding, learning this. In 5 years down the line, your ability to applying the data into insights is going to be the only clinching factor. What is ChatGPT done today? Right, today even if you put up in your investor this is what I'm doing, you ask ChatGPT to come up with the loopholes in your statement as well. So it's you can hide for some time, or you can it's said and done. Sorry for just a minute more. You can fool some people for a long time. You can fool a lot of people for a short period of time. But as an honest data person, you cannot fool everybody for a long period of time.
Absolutely.
And that's the responsibility. I think we'll see through technology itself. My brilliant technology friends will come up with the
Just to
backchecks.
validate.
ChatGPT is an outstanding example of what Google did not anticipate. ChatGPT. There will be a lot of more innovations in this.
Right, and before we go to Sharad on that same topic, by storytelling, it's actually, what I meant also was the good side of it, where you have some good data, but if you don't have a good story on that data, you're not going to be able to create the right emotions in the people that you're talking about the data with, right? So yeah, sure, go ahead, Smita.
Just one more point to build on this, the whole piece around storytelling. Today, a lot of organizations have started this initiative that if you have to come and sit in a meeting, you have to have the license to speak. Have you gone and done some work with the consumers? Have you met like 100 consumers in a quarter? No. Do you have that data? When I say when you have gone and met the consumers, you have that data. You have the license to speak, come and speak and represent what the consumer is thinking, behaving, what are his attitudes, what is he doing, why is she doing that. So the what and whys get parked onto the table only when you have the license to speak and you have gone and met with the consumer. So I think that's a big movement with a lot of large and small organizations are taking a step forward on that front.
Absolutely, and just on that, just a little spin on that whole storytelling part. I would say if all, the entire kind of use cases that we deal with, organizations, social, whichever context you look at it, if everyone becomes better and more responsible with storytelling using data, you can drive the right emotions, you can drive the right decisions, right action, right impact. That helps you really get that value from data in the right way. Sharad, your take on storytelling using data?
Am I audible? Yeah. So storytelling, when it comes to storytelling, it's really, really an art. And I must say that we need to understand that when we apply the analytics, who is the end consumer? Now, interestingly, those who are doing it, suppose if I'm a modeler, I have come up with a fantastic model of having a beautiful, accuracy or things like that. And if I say to my stakeholder that, okay, I have built up a very good model and the Kolmogorov-Smirnov statistic of this is going to be and then the person is going to, what are you talking about, right? So there comes that the storytelling skills, you have to, a good modeler or a data modeler or a data person needs to be a good storyteller so that, he or she would be able to convince what he is trying to or what he has done. So that's very important. Just coming to Smita's point, and I never see that qualitative research is going to be altogether different than the quantitative research, because qualitative research is going to be the basis for quantitative research. In my early days, I remember I was doing some project for a Dubai insurance company, and we have come up with a fantastic model for predicting something which I can't tell you right now. And then there was a domain person over there, who know the business in and out, and then he said that, yeah, tera ye jo variable hai na, ye galat hai. This variable can't be that much significant. And the variable what we have dropped out, that should be there. And he had experience of more than 28 years in the industry. And then we were like, no, this can't be the case like that. And then we further investigated that, sat with her, what made him to make that statement. And then we realized that yes, so, it's just like Utkarsh was saying, you can make a god or a devil if you using statistics. That's a very old saying. So it's just like that. Storytelling is going to be substantiated by the qualitative research, and that basic understanding is really, really required. A pure statistician or a pure technocrat or a pure modeler is not going to be, going to do the justice with the business problem to be solved as such.
Prasad, you could, yeah. Prasad, you want to just add to the whole storytelling conversation, because almost all of us have spoken about it. What's your take on it?
So
my take on it is definitely I agree with everyone sitting next to me that storytelling is great, important, but I personally believe that great stories are built by great insights. And if you have to produce good insights, you need good data. And if you need good data, you need powerful technology. So technology will continue to serve as a key differentiator going ahead as well. So I would just like to quote an example. Earlier we had on-prem data warehouses like Oracle and something, then we moved to Hadoop. And now eventually we have cloud. Tomorrow something else will come up. Yes, we have ChatGPT coming in, solving a number of questions for us. Yes, it's trending, but when you go to the real use case, when you're trying to solve a real problem, I think it all narrows down to simple things. Simple things as in whether the right data is arriving at the right time and whether that data is generating the required insights. That's it. So for that you need the latest technology and it has to be monitored and enhanced on an ongoing basis. So that's my take on it.
Great. I think these are such interesting conversation points, right? We can go on for the next 100 hours, but obviously we don't have much time for that, maybe for some other time. But before we close, just 2 minutes each one of you, what advice would you have for young budding MBAs, entering this whole, data-driven world? Not just from an analytics standpoint, but also from your experience. Of course, if it has an analytics flavor to it, of course it's going to help. But what's each one of your advice to all these bright young folks who are wrapping up their MBA courses right now? Starting with you, Smita.
I think yes, one should get excited with data. I'm sure all of you do. Excitement with data is great. Use it cautiously. That's all I would say.
I think very clearly, one thing is look at the goal or the perspective that you're going to solve the problem for. Keep an empathy of the customer. Think about what you want to solve, and everything else will follow. So, I think I was reiterating again, the bridge between the data, insights, and to business value, non-business value also. Basically, you're trying to solve a problem. I think data for good was one example. So I'm sure there is a similar case study 10 years back where a milk producing company was using sensors with the cows around for their health management as well. So it's just the perspective it flips to a health perspective for animals or a business usage. It's about what goal are you solving, okay? And I think I'll put up one more interesting point. Today we are into quant. Tomorrow data will be used for emotions, okay? And one thing we do in Aditya Birla is we do a lot of NPS. We had the Mission Happiness Program, which is a very big initiative. What we have now started doing is, I don't want to go back to customer for NPS every time. I'm predicting NPS. Now to go back to predict NPS, I need to predict emotions. I need to understand. So it's always about what goal I'm solving, what is my end. Time out? No, it's not. So how do I solve that problem? And there are various techniques behind it. So you use whatever techniques or tools or analytics that you have, but always keep in mind the bridge. You have to be the transformer, the bridge between the insights and the business part.
Sure.
So maybe I will just give you what I know from my limited understanding, basically. So first thing is to be open to learning. All of you know your teachers will tell that. But given the amount of data and given the proliferation of technologies, right, it's not just sufficient to say, I know one kind of dashboarding tool or I know one kind of a cloud service. Moving from one to another one is not very difficult. You know one language, you can speak in another very quickly. So keep learning, be open to technologies is one thing. The second thing is on the storytelling part. I did not come to me on that, but no problem. No problem. I would rather frame the story after I see my insights, rather than make up a story and then try to find insights. The first way is easier, where the story may not be coherent, the hero may not always win in the end, but you start with the insights. Go to the data, see what it says. From there, try to find out a few probable paths that you want to explore and go on. And from the point of view that I see, I'm a data scientist, I do coding. But when somebody needs to talk to the client, MBAs are the guys that help us in our company as well. I keep telling that this is what the data is, this is what the model I do. But like Utkarsh mentioned now, You are the guys who will help bring sense to me as well as set the expectations with the client. Say, this is possible with your data, or this is what the client wants, let's do another modeling approach. So what I would want, or what I would recommend all of you is to be, you just get an idea of what are all the modeling techniques possible, what are all the business problems, how do you translate a business problem to modeling one, and the results from here to the other. That's how I would see as good things that you would need to learn.
So from my side, it would be very simple. Upskill yourself in Web3 and cloud. That is going to be there when you enter the industry today or tomorrow. And the second thing is, don't be confined to one particular domain. You have to know both technical as well as business to really excel in the industry. So keep your perspective broad. That's the only two things that I have.
Sharad?
I'll just say one thing, go for the fact-based decision making, and when you have to make the fact-based decision making, data is the fact. That doesn't mean that you should leave your gut feeling. So support your gut feel with the fact-based decision making, and that is going to give you the right, make the right decisions. Thanks.
Great. I'll just connect the dots. I think all of them have given you useful nuggets of insights that could help you. I'd just say, guys, this is a fantastic time to be doing an MBA and entering into this world, because the world is more open, more democratic, more data-driven than it ever has been. You really have to find your passion, see what you're really good at, see what you want to really do. I keep quoting this Ikigai example every time I speak about this, which is you got to be at the intersection of four things. A, what the world needs. B, what you're good at. C, what you enjoy doing. And D, what pays you for what you're doing. You know, when you're at the intersection of these four things, you're really doing the best you can in terms of creating an impact for yourself and for the world. So there's no excuse in today's age and time to not be data-driven. You have to be data-driven, absolutely, no matter what area of expertise you want to focus on. But you also have to be creative and right-brained as well, so that you're solving the right problems and applying the right thinking, which leverages data. So I think that's what I want to leave you guys with. And it was great having a conversation with all of you guys. It's fantastic. I hope you guys took some useful learning from it. And thanks a lot for having us. It's great to be here. Thank you.
A big thank you to all our panelists for such an enriching discussion. We now open the forum for Q&A session.
Good afternoon, sir. My question, good afternoon, sir. My first question is to Shri, sir. So like interpretation can be personal views also, right? And for similar data, we may have different interpretations. So can interpretations be validated? My first question.
The interpretations which are data driven can be validated. If I see a line and you see a curve, there is nothing we can do. But if both of us agree that it's a line, then we can talk. So typically the interpretations that I mean are rigorously validated. You say this is the basis on which I'm evaluating. And then both of us compare notes. We use the same evaluation metric and see. But if, just like on a lighter note, I say there's a line, but you say there's a curve, there's nothing much we can do. That's true.
So sir, even for interpretation, it means that it is at the end of the day based upon humans' experience only, right?
But typically in the data world, it is not so. When I make a statement that this is what I see in the data, I or anyone, or the fact anyone here will show the data on which they are doing this, will state their assumptions, will state their modeling technique, and then show their result. Which means I tell you what I do, you go and do on your own, and you get the same answer. That is where it is, and not really saying that I did something, I got this, you take my word at face value. That wouldn't really fly today.
Sorry, Shri, I
Yes.
just want to add to that because
Yeah.
you just taught us in the workshop. Many times when I was in the business, when a data scientist speaks, they take their word, right? Now you taught us the other day in confusion matrix, you can either take an F1 score or go with the 1 or the 0. You would know it. The business person would rely on you and your story, right?
Yes.
So to that extent, as a MBA student or as a researcher, how do I know that maybe I'm interpreting it in the best way and not seeing a wrong metric? I mean, because there's no way I can go and have many sounding board. That's a question we always face.
Yeah, maybe that would really come from the business need only. Like saying it's a medical diagnosis test, a false positive is more dangerous. I'm just trying to send my discount coupon to a few people. False positives are okay. I send a discount coupon to you, you don't take it, nothing really happens.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really worry when I'm doing it in a retail world. Versus the same modeling technique but for a medical diagnostic test, I will be very, very careful because I should not really scare someone off by calling out something which is not right. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
one more.
I think I just add for a business perspective, for you, what the best thing which I can suggest is back test your data. If you're going to say this is my best campaign and somebody else disagrees to you, just go back and see if there is a similar audience for you, how I have responded in earlier history. That's the most logical thing to do is go back to my data and say what is the data telling me in the past experience. If that is validated, probably that is a most proxy way of estimating how whose influence is better or closer by to reality.
Validation is possible, going back to this question. Validation of those interpretations is possible.
Ma'am, my second question is to, Sharas Savana sir, my second question is to you. Societal development like inclusivity, diversity, it's actually very slow in businesses, even in businesses. So, like compared to the development in AI and ML, societal development is like slower. So, isn't the models ML, AI, they are recreating the prejudices?
I don't really see that. People in the me and Utkarsh was discussing about the same thing that we are very much closer to the day when everything is getting driven by the machines and we are already there. Does it mean that we are going to be obsolete as a human or our brains are not going to be useful? It's not like that. Just imagine 1980s when computer came and at that point in time, and then everyone was talking about that our job chala jayega. Now we will be finished and things like that. Now what happened? See, computer is just going to do those things which are going to be mundane, right? Now what we think yesterday was mundane might not be very much considered to be mundane, last week. So it's, we as human, we are better to do more, larger things or better things as compared to computers. So coming to your point, that is why we are having, we started talking about the ethical AI and things like that, and that's really, really important. So that's a huge area now being discussed through the industry, and people are now making aware about those things. So that has already started. Everything, whatever you do, because you can make a god or a devil, as I said earlier, but we should be using the AI ethically. So there is a huge area coming up, and we should be added to that.
Thank you, sir.
Ethical use of data, right? I mean, today all the devices that we use that are consuming all the data that's getting generated, right? How does the iPhone know when you say, "Hey Siri," or how does Alexa know when did you say, "Hey Alexa," or "Hey, okay Google"? That means the device is listening to you all the time, right? Because only then it can register that phrase which is meant to wake it up. It's already awake all the time. So imagine all of that data being taken in and moved to the cloud, and imagine what you can do with that kind of data, right? Why does US ban Chinese firms from operating in the US? You don't have a Alibaba cloud for any US company will never use Ali Cloud, will never use Huawei Cloud. Why? Because Huawei and Alibaba, they don't have very well-defined data security, privacy prevention policies. Chinese government can actually consume all the data that's out there in the mobile devices in the US, and that data can be, you can extrapolate that data and mine it to get to whatever you want to get to in terms of insights, right? So which is why this whole ethical use of data is a big thing, and I think again tying it back to with great power comes great responsibility, right? And even today when you buy a phone or you consume any digital service, right, you're exposed to a huge verbose, absolutely non-reader friendly kind of consent agreement, which we all very joyfully say I accept and move forward, right? Because you don't have a choice, right? But the organization has to be responsible enough to not expose you to a verbose gobbledygook kind of a block of text. Instead, they should just state in two specific terms what data I am capturing and what am I going to do with this data. Simple. That allows the customer to take that decision that I want to subscribe to this service or I don't want to subscribe to this service. And every time they change their strategy, they are capturing new data or they are capturing better use cases of that data, they should update this, just these 2 points. I'm capturing this new data, I'm going to use it for these 3 new things. Are you okay? That's it, simple. And when you get to that point, you know that organizations are acting really, really maturely. Because the more data I consume, the better it is because I can deliver much more customized experiences to my customers. So data is of course good, but it has to be used and projected in the right way so that the customers also get that confidence and you don't really, you don't really cross any ethical boundaries of data usage and knowingly or unknowingly in the various use cases that you operate as a business. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Sure.
Yeah.
One moment, I'll just add a small thing. Your question was about AI leading to more prejudice in the society. So, if you say prejudice or inequality, whatever we call it, right? Google developed a software solution, deep learning solution for what is called as diabetic retinopathy. People who have diabetes, they have a problem with the retina and the eye, which will eventually get damaged. Okay, Google developed a deep learning solution. And one mobile company, I think it is Samsung, I'm sorry if I got the name wrong, but they developed, they took up this initiative of taking up old phones, the phones that when people exchange their Galaxy to new Galaxy, right? They took up these old phones, installed this deep learning software on the mobile, and then gave it out to healthcare practitioners to scale the diagnostic equipment. I mean, in the real world, right, people have to take a test, they have to come to Mumbai, Bangalore, some metropolitan city for a specialized equipment. That equipment is now democratized with the help of AI, which is being used in, say, remote villages where people cannot really afford healthcare. That is one place where I see AI is not really accentuating these prejudices, but actually erasing them and making it easy for people to learn. So that is one example I know of, at least maybe. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and AI is not good or bad by definition. It's down to people and organizations that use it. How are you using it for? You can use a knife to cut vegetables, or you can use a knife to do, baby stamps.
Excellent.
It depends on how you use the knife. So knife by itself is not good or bad. It's really up to people, which is why again I come back to Spider-Man, right? Great power comes great responsibility. You decide how you're going to use it. Because you have the power and we humans control that power. Machines are not going to take over on us because we still control this power of choosing what to do with AI. And that's where we need to be more responsible and more mature. Sure, you had to ask.
I just want to add that one, of course, what you want to do with AI, but also just be aware what AI can do. Because Chinese government had come out with a notification that in China it's very common to put up your selfies. And they do this and they put up their selfies and it says that don't do this because someone can see your fingerprints. So if you really want to take a selfie, take it like this. So the important part is just be aware what AI can do. And when you are on a social platform, be aware of that. Thank you.
So for today's discussion, we talked about 5 V's of the big data. But coming down to decision making, so we have structured and unstructured data. My understanding is from working with the structured data, we can really boil down to yes or no answers. But most of the data is unstructured, so it really depends upon the perception of how data is being handled. And I think most of the resources are being utilized in how to approach this unstructured data. My question is to you, Sri sir, how do you deal with this unstructured data? Talking in volume, as 70% of data is in unstructured terms.
Yeah. So we use unstructured data for yes/no decision making also. When you specify your objectives, for example, one use case that we worked on long ago, that was very long ago, 5 years ago, is to find out whether workers in a manufacturing plant or a factory are wearing their helmets or not. Okay? Every manufacturing plant or a factory will have CCTVs, cameras. Correct? All these cameras are typically tied to a control room or a security room where on the big TV screen, all these small screens will be showing them. Correct? Now, if a safety supervisor has to look at all the screens, it is not possible. The simple question was, are workers following their safety practices? He is supposed to wear what is called as a hard hat. Hard hat is a helmet, so that something falls, you are safe. Okay? So, even though we use video feeds, trained a deep learning model to detect and tell whether a person is wearing a hard hat in a location where he is supposed to be wearing. From the camera I can even tell you that to the left is safe, there is nothing there, you can take off your hat, but to your right is the equipment and you come right, you have to wear your hat. Even that level of differentiation we were able to do. Now today that is more commonly available via the cloud, thanks to the big cloud service providers. Now today it is there. So unstructured data doesn't really mean that our insights cannot be structured. The insights can still be structured from unstructured data. That is possible. Yeah.
Sorry, I think it's a pretty interesting piece. Actually, if I can tell you the other way, there's far more insight in unstructured data rather than structured data. It's always like we do the low-hanging fruit, and it's very easy for me to just pivot into an Excel and come out with a data point, right? But if I have my visual camera is on a customer visiting my retail store, and if I'm able to identify the emotions, looking at a simple dress, I'm able to identify the emotions while walking through certain aisles and picking up two things simultaneously. That is multiplier in insights as compared to any kind of structured data that can tell you. You have to go through a market mix analysis to tell me what two things are being picked up. If I have a visual camera, it just tells me what is the regular route the customer will take in a supermarket or in a shopping market. That tells me very clearly the compounding to the different products that the customer will pick up. So unstructured data, because we've been working so long for structured data, we find comfort there. But today, everything is possible, and structured data is far more less, a very general statement, but unstructured data will be much more juicier to make actions, understand the customer, and make a business value out of it much more in the future.
Just to build on that, so the power of unstructured data, and the example that Utkarsh gave, that brings me to another point in research, which is ethnography, which is the power of observation. That helps you build hypothesis, helps arrive at insights, and then complement it with the quantitative. So it always works complementing the qualitative insights, the hypothesis that get validated through the quantitative to take the decisions then forward. I know I'm digressing, but I just thought I'd park this power of ethnography here.
Just one quick addition. Every unstructured data can be converted into structured and then can be analyzed. So you talk about text data, for example, you can have a matrix, term by document matrix, you made it structured and then you can analyze it. You have the camera or the photos, pictures, you have the pixel data over there. So every unstructured data is first getting converted into structured data and then can be analyzed. So you can analyze anything the way you are actually analyzing any structured data. The thing is that it's going to be voluminous, so we have the technology and power to computation power. The storage power.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful example, right? What Sharad said was unstructured data can be structured. How can it be structured? Through metadata. You heard of metadata? For example, Spotify recommends songs to you, right? Every song has 20 data points that describe what is going on in that song. Those are the meta variables, metadata for a song. Whether this is a classical song, whether it has harmonium in it, whether it has a certain artist performing, whether it has a certain kind of tune that is being played, etc. And a lot of the metadata would get extracted through an AI process where you can write an algorithm that can extract those, teach the algorithm to identify different things in these data sets, and then you create metadata out of it. Now, what you store is the metadata, right? And that metadata becomes the input to the machine learning process. That's going to, recommender systems as we talk about, collaborative filtering or any of the approaches that you use. The recommender system can then recommend songs to you based on your metadata consumption behavior. Like you like classical music, so I'm going to recommend classical songs to you because the metadata which is tagged to those songs has made me aware of your song preferences. If there's no metadata, I wouldn't know what you like or what you don't like. And the richer the metadata, the better the recommendation and the better the behavior analysis and the better the decision making around these kind of recommendations.
I know we've run out of time, but Dhaval, a question as a faculty. How do you teach storytelling? I've tried many things, but I would like to get your and others' ideas because everyone has a unique style. Once you have the insights, how do you become a powerful storyteller that moves people at the emotional level?
Yeah, I think, fortunately or unfortunately, there's no easy answer. Okay, and I think all of us would agree when it comes to that because it's a function of too many things. Again, it's a function of right brain, left brain thinking. It's a function of how much diversity of data have you consumed yourself, right? Which is why I recommend people to read diverse things. If you're a finance professional, don't just read finance, read marketing, see movies, understand more about food, understand more about wildlife. The more diversity of data you have, the better your ability to connect the dots. And the better your ability to connect the dots, the better your storytelling ability. Because your mind works beautifully in terms of connecting the dots, remember that. If I give you two things, let's say if I give you two things like say a table and say a football, two completely unrelated items, in 2 minutes you will find 5 ways in which a football and a table are connected. That's how the human mind works, neural networks. When you try and establish connections as wherever possible. So if you feed a lot of diverse information into your head, read about different things, expose yourself to more interesting, diverse things, your ability to connect the dots increases, your ability to tell stories increases. Having said that, that's just one of the ways. You have to constantly work on it. As I said, it's an art, it's a science, it's a combination of things. And it's not a question that you can answer in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. But yes, I mean, one of the things if I want to give you guys takeaways, expose yourself to diverse things. Do not just be monolithic in whatever you're doing. Of course, you've got to be great at what you do, by the way, but you also have to be exposed to various different things for your mind to be more fertile around ideas and, cross relations and therefore ability to tell stories.
Fantastic concept. It's like ending your final shot for the goal. I will just say one thing. If you put me one thing to do, it's empathy. Understand your audience, what that person is thinking through, and if you connect to that story, okay. If I'm able to connect to your problems, I think that clinches for me somewhere. Okay. If you really ask me, it's a very complex thing. But one thing, if you put a gun on my head and say, if you're going to make a presentation to somebody, I just ask, what is his problems? What is he going through? And if I can connect to those, maybe that can just for me.
So with this, we come to the end of the Q&A segment. We thank the audience for being patient and interactive. At the onset, I would like to thank our guests for making this discussion enriching and meaningful for all of us. Your diverse viewpoints, backed by your experience, has surely helped us understand the essence data analytics hold in current times and its future. As rightly mentioned by one of our panelists, that only 30% of data has been explored till now, we surely have a long and exciting journey ahead of us. I'm sure all of us are going back with a lot to deliberate and ponder upon. We'll stop the YouTube live now. So now it's time